Hi, Professor Nancy Folbre. Thank you very much for being here. It's really good that you could make it and talk to us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Feminist Economics 101, where young scholars chat with senior scholars about what feminist is, what feminist economics is, and how it contributes to their field of study. My name is Lygia Sabbag. I am core faculty at the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research, and I teach political economy and economics. Today, I have the great pleasure of chatting with Professor Nancy Folbre. She is Professor Emerita of Economics at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and also the director of the program in Gender and Care Work at the Political Economy Research Institute. Professor Folbre, so without taking too long, I would start by asking you if you could tell us about what you do and how it relates to feminist economics.
Well, pretty much everything that I do is feminist economics. I think there's no escaping it. I just finished a book called The Rise and Decline of Patriarchal Systems, an Intersectional Political Economy. And in some ways, it's a very theoretical book, looking at how to conceptualize identity and interests based on gender in ways that are parallel to identity and interests based on race and class and citizenship. But there's also a lot of economic history in the book. And my particular interest has always been looking at care work, both paid and unpaid care work, and what its distinctive features are and why it tends to be undervalued and under-rewarded.
Thank you. So could you please tell us how you think that feminists and economics fit together?
Well, I think they fit together in a number of ways. I think that a really key point for me is the notion that women have some interests in common as women, which has always been a part of the feminist project, but that women also have other interests, that their interests can't be reduced to gender. They belong to other groups and commit to other forms of collective action. And I think a really important part of feminist theory is trying to understand how collective cooperation and conflict both kind of evolve over time.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. So how has feminist economics evolved in the last 10 or 20 years?
Well, it's become, I think it's kind of matured. It's become more diverse, more complex. It's a lot of the vocabulary of feminist economics is now pretty widely accepted in the mainstream. I think partly as a result, there's now more empirical and quantitative research that fits under the rubric of feminist economics. But I'd like to think that it still has this distinctive interest in or distinctive conceptualization of collective identity and action.
Okay. Would you like to tell us a little bit how feminist economics becoming more mainstream changed the field?
Well, I think it's hard to say, and that might be a question better answered by a younger scholar who could compare their own experience with mine. But you know, when the International Association for Feminist Economics was first founded, just the idea that you could combine the words feminist and economics was considered laughable, ridiculous, or reckless. And whereas now I think it's considered a little bit maybe mischievous, but not you know, it's not so unfamiliar, right? But perhaps as a result, it has a less, you know, maybe the boundaries are less clearly defined. That's good in some ways, and maybe problematic in others. But it's, I don't know. I think all topics of inquiry have a kind of life cycle where they kind of start out with new ideas and then gradually kind of develop and become more complicated, and then gradually get absorbed into you know, a larger body of thought. I guess I think that's a process that's kind of underway.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So since you mentioned IAFI, I would like to ask you, what role has IAFI played in your career development?
Well, it's been completely central to it. It was like the first opportunity I had to really connect with a network of people interested in the same themes that I'm interested in. It also gave me a much more international focus than I would have had otherwise, because it's always had a very international membership and been kind of committed to developing more collaboration. So that's been really important. I just feel like I've really learned a lot and been very rewarded by the sense of intellectual curiosity and kind of bold, um, you know, bold criticism of the economic mainstream. I think that has emerged from the whole feminist economics project.
Thank you. Would you have some, could you think of some example to tell us, like how, like either IAFI in general as a association, or even like in the specific meetings or the conference, like an example to share with us, like something that you remember that it was important for you in your career?
No, I can't really think of one single thing. I know that it was really there is a very kind of poignant intergenerational aspect to any organization. So when we first put the association together, there were some more experienced feminist economists, older senior feminist economists like Barbara Bergman and Lois Shaw, Marianne Ferber, who were in their 60s, which is where I am now. And they were very spunky and very smart and very, it was wonderful to be around them, to see them in action. I have very good memories of them.
Okay, that's great. So good role
Yeah.
models, right?
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's very important. I mean, saying for myself, that's really important
Yeah.
for the younger generation. So since we're talking about that, I would like to ask you if you could give an advice to young scholars, or some advice that you would give to your young self at the beginning of your career as a feminist economist.
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I could give myself any advice. Um, I think uh, maybe not so much advice, but some acknowledgement, some reflection. I think it's hard to be it's hard to forge a career in academic economics these days. I think it's harder for your generation than mine because economic conditions have changed, support for public education has declined, and public higher education in particular is undergoing a lot of changes, a shift away from full-time employment towards more contingent and part-time positions, and very competitive situation in terms of finding a secure employment. But I still think it's a really good trajectory. I think it's one that allows you to pursue ideas that you're really interested in and you really care about. And you just have to pace yourself and figure out a way to kind of be strategic and practical about getting your career going, and also stay true to the things you care about most. If you don't have pretty strong sense of inner direction and commitment, it will be hard to tough it out. You really need to believe in what you're doing in order to put up with all of the kind of unpleasant stuff that you'll have to deal with. But if you do it, it'll be great.
Thank you. talking about like that you also that you really have to believe, I recently read your piece on the New York Times about care work, and I see now that this is a big trend in the US. And I would love if you could share with us some of your thoughts about this recent trend and how care work is being discussed and what to expect from it in a more like governmental level and public discourse.
Well, I wish I knew exactly what to expect from it. I think it's still a little uncertain. I do think the Democratic Party in the US has moved in the direction of a really strong commitment to progressive policies, including investments in care infrastructure. I think feminist economics deserves some credit for that, kind of laying an intellectual foundation and helping educate voters and policymakers about what's going on. I think the Trump administration had kind of helped unify the left in the US because it was a difficult and horrific experience for us, and still remains so to a large degree, since it's not really clear that the um, political realignment that began with Biden's election will continue or will even remain secure. But if it does, and I'm hopeful, if it does, I think we are likely to see growing investments in care infrastructure. I think the pandemic was another unifying force, kind of forcing people to think a little bit more about human well-being and a little bit less about gross domestic product and who's richer than whom. So that was good. I also think that climate change is another another overarching problem that's forcing us to reorient economic thinking away from the market, and that there are a lot of synergies between efforts to challenge and mitigate or prevent climate change and the feminist project. In both cases, we're talking about kind of protecting public goods and developing more cooperative ways of solving problems than those which the competitive market allows. So I think, a lot of external events have sort of converged to create an opening that I think, but I think the ideas that we've been working on for years and years and years have also played and will continue to play a really important role.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. How we go from now on, because I think now there is some space, there is some
Yeah.
budget being allocated for it. So
Yeah.
I would love if you could like tell us a little bit more, unpack this, like how as feminist economics we could support it.
Well, I think feminist economists should try to be public intellectuals, by which I mean, should always be willing to talk to journalists, to participate in social media, to try to get ideas out there, to try to express their ideas in a form that ordinary people can relate to and connect with. But also to be, innovative in our own academic work and try to, establish more of an institutional beachhead in the academy, I think is also another really important goal. I think continuing the international and strengthening the international dimensions of the feminist project is also really key, because almost all the problems that we're facing on a global level are really going to require some global coordination and cooperation.
Yeah, that's that's a very interesting point. Would you like to add anything else, like tell us something that you think it's important that maybe I didn't ask?
Well, no, can't really think of anything. I guess I'd really like to hear. I think it's great that you're interviewing kind of the older generation for this project, but I would like to hear more from the younger generation. I don't really have a sense of, you know, what your priorities are, or what your, you know, what you feel like the biggest um, issues that you're dealing with. So let's let's try to make it. Let's just work on making it a two-way
I
exchange.
totally agree with that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
would be a great idea. I
yeah,
will suggest that for a
yeah,
very like near future. We could do this.
yeah.
Would
I
be
could interview you.
okay. I would
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, so then thank you very much, Professor
yeah,
Folbre. It was great to be with you. And I would like to tell you and everyone that all other interviews are also available in the Yafi YouTube channel. So if you want to see what other feminist economics told us, it would be all available there. And thank you very much, Professor Folbre. It was
yeah,
great to be with you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah, and good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.